Fun evening last night and morning, which I kind of saw coming, but I really hoped it was going to hold off. I had two gilts push under. I haven't had the electric fence out live in the pasture, and this is why I say I do woven wire with electric offset, because when I don't maintain that electric or turn it off for any short period of time, I've got problems. Gilts get testy, especially ones in heat. Bores get testy, especially if there is a gilt in heat. This was the two gals. Like I said in a previous video, sometimes it's the gals that cause the problem trying to get to the guys. Two feeder gilts pushed under the fence to get over to meet Benedict. They were just in the paddock next to him last night, and I got them put back where they belong, threw something against the fence in the spot where I saw they were hoping that it would just hold them till this morning, and then I'd get out there and fix it, because it's getting pretty late. And I wouldn't be able to see to do a good enough job to get the fence going. But this morning, when I fed the gilts, a short one, so I was like, okay, well, one has obviously gotten up there, went up, fed Benedict and his group, and sure enough, there's a gilt up there. Thankfully, a very distinct one. It's one of our only, it may be our only cream gilt, but I know which one she is. Even if it's not, she's got some pretty distinct markings, so she'll be one of the ones to go in this coming week for sure, because she was in with Benedict and obviously in heat, so she's not getting to stay around for very long. So she'll go as probably the Thursday one to make sure I get her out of here. And then we're going out right now to fix some fence. I wanted to go over the stuff that I use to fix or build and fix electric fence. So good pair of linesman pliers. They've got the wire cutters and then the flatheads. These are awesome. Use them all the time. Pocket knife. I'm not gonna show you my pocket knife. Well, I guess I can if you want to see it. I just use a little pocket knife. I'm not one of those people that needs a giant knife to have to work on something small. Like, I need a pocket knife to manage to cut through, well, this over here, your grounding line, which is just wire inside, insulated. So this is what you do when you're running, arching to a gate connection or running underground. I actually don't like this style. Like, I really hate it. And we'll probably see some out in the pasture. You can kind of see it here. No, if it's not gonna zoom in on it. It's a bunch of little silver lines, individual wires. Yeah, and it sucks. It is always just breaking at those. There's another kind that I had been getting, and then Lowe's quit carrying this kind, so I need to try, or quit carrying the kind I like, so I need to try to track that down. That style is just one thick, like 9-gauge aluminum wire in there, and that's awesome. I almost never have that break, so that's fantastic. It's got a black outer coating, so it also doesn't stand out. Anytime that this manages to get uncovered, because I bury it, but I only bury it like 3 to 6 inches tops beneath the ground. We get a good rain event, and they're right around the gates mucking up. I can expose it, and they're for some reason just like, ooh, that looks fun. And they pull the whole thing up out of the ground, chew it in half. I mean, they get shocked at first, right? But then that goes away once it's in half. And then the whole section of fence is undone. And sometimes I don't notice it, or I feel like this is thinner than the other stuff. So sometimes a rock will puncture it. And then I've got to just figure out, trace down with a tester where the fence is going bad. And then electrical tape. This I use for spots where the line is just, I cannot get it away from the fence for some reason, or where I'm making a connection from that blue line or the black line to my normal fence. I'll go ahead and wrap it in some electrical tape just to help give some stability to it as it's wiggling around, because it's usually on a joint that's going to move for some reason. So I always bring some of that out with me. And then these. So this is your standard electric fence clip. This is a 5-inch long clip. I only use 5 inches. We used to use the shorter ones, but they really only work, they don't work coming off of woven wire, because woven wire's got some funky spots. So we use the 5-inch extenders. This is a standard. This is a reverse, okay? The standards are really, really cheap. The reverses are quite a bit more than that. I like 50% more at least. Where I've been getting them at least. So I really hate when I have to use them, but obviously on all my paddock fences I have to. If I'm going to put electric on both sides, I have to have them like that. So gotta have both. Thankfully, most of my perimeter fence faces in towards me, so I can use standards. So just keep that in mind when you're setting your posts. Like if you're doing perimeter fence, always face the flat side in towards you, which you should do anyways for your woven wire. So that way the pigs are pushing against the woven wire and against the post, pushing that woven wire into the post versus them leaning on it, pulling it off. I've got one or two fences that just kind of, the T-posts are already there, so I didn't screw with it, and they're pushing it off. So then you have to use way more clips to hold it on, and it's, unless you do the electric offset, it's really not as good. And if you don't do electric offset, your woven wire is only going to last for so long anyways. It'll stay in better shape and it'll actually work if you use the electric offset. And when you don't use it, you get problems like I'm having. And then last, this is the wire I use. You see it's pretty hefty. This is a 9-gauge aluminum wire. Okay, it is stout. I don't think I have any just laying around. No. So a lot of people will use like the 19-gauge or even 14-gauge steel wire or aluminum. I don't like the steel, and I've got it in a lot of places because it's what we started out with. We didn't know any better, and it was cheaper. Not cheaper than this, oddly enough. I found a really great supplier for this. Lowe's, oddly enough, carries this in the rolls online for like $60 for a huge roll. And I guess, I mean, the steel is probably still a little cheaper, but this is a huge roll. This lasts me forever, or does a lot of fences at least. That steel, it winds up rusting, and that rusting reduces its efficiency as an electric fence, and it reduces its visibility, right? So it just looks like a brown thing there. The pigs don't see it as easy. They eventually learn, but they don't see it as easy, and I like them to know that, like, oh, hey, that's that thing, I should avoid that. The 9-gauge is very visible, and another issue we had with the thinner 18, 19, and 14 gauge fence is that, especially if you're using it as your only fencing, which I really don't like using electric as my only fencing because shit happens and the fence goes not live, and then they find out and they just go right through it. It's not even a mild deterrent. Like, at least the woven wire is a mild deterrent when it's not got an electric offset. Unless your pigs are very, very well trained to it, and eventually they lose that training, just because they test it, they bump into it on accident, whatever. They will go through it. And so I was always having, when we had it as our only fence, especially even when it was live, I had a couple of Dorper sheep that they just had really, really thick wool, and they would just blast through it. And instead of it, like with this stuff, if somebody manages to push through, the wire's fine. All I gotta do is retighten it a little somewhere. It's usually a clip that breaks instead of this wire. I've never had this wire snap. That 19 gauge and 18 gauge and such, that was always breaking. Like, they'd push through and just snap it into pieces. So it was kind of useless, as if anybody tested it at least. So, all right, that's the tools we use to get going. And I've got one other style of thing to show you, which is how we do off of our wooden posts, our connectors for that. But I'll show you that while we're working. I'm gonna walk the lines and see where there's problems, get it all connected, and then I'll tie it back into the electric fence, which will just be pulling up a wire, twisting it back around, and electrical taping it real quick, because that's all I do when I unconnect, is I'll either just cut the wire and then pull and tie it back in later, which is what we're gonna do. We're gonna disconnect everything except about 3 or 4 fence lines that exactly hit where I need them, so that the maximum amount of juice is going into those lines, and it's not going into the weeds that are on the rest of the fence that I still have to take care of. When I get back next week, probably Saturday and Sunday, I'm gonna go through and start working on all the fences. That was my next project to need to do after we finish some water barrel infrastructure and a few places that I just, new project you'll get to see in a upcoming video. Maybe this evening I'll film that. I really would like to. And then a pond solution for the other pigs. I may get that done this afternoon too. Make it easier on my farm sitter. So we had that, and then all the other pigs going with deliveries and process appointments. So I knew I wasn't gonna be able to get to it soon, but next Saturday and Sunday I may be able to do that. So that'd be great. It's just a lot of weed eating. All right, so starting at the top, this is where our fence comes through, and it is still live. So that comes up under the ground, over, connects just past Terry here, farm cat. That blue line that wraps all the way around past the pool deck into the covered porch. we're gonna put an outlet right here when I pull electric to this deck next week, or probably the week after then. And we're gonna put the charger here in a covered plastic box. So that way there's a lot less runaround because there's no need to have all of this stretch hot. And so then the whole field will get its own 2-joule charger, and the backyard and side yards will get a 1/2-joule charger of their own, which I have just laying around from when we upgraded. So this is the line that we're gonna have to tie back in. This is that type of insulated wire that I told you I like. It's great, really heavy duty. This plastic's very heavy duty. It's a real pain to cut, which the other stuff's not. It's very, very easy to cut through. It's very soft. This is very hard. So we'll just tie it in with that, where that little thing is dangling off the fence of it. That's not a good solution, but I have not come up with a good solution for how to pull off of these steel posts like this right there. So this line goes under the ground here because it's unnecessary at the garden, comes up to the top, runs along the top here. See there? Another just real janky farm fix solution. It's just jabbed into that barbed wire and then held into place with some baling twine. But this isn't necessary, and this isn't live because it's not tied in yet, but it runs along the top of this. And I often have problems with birds, and that's what we're here to check. I often have problems with birds hitting that, quail or sometimes deer, but not very often with deer, spiderweb. And they'll twist it around this barbed wire. And all this stuff that's touching it is going to short it out, but you'll see there's going to be quite a bit of stuff still touching it. So it runs all the way to here, catches another one of those ground lines, because this really is unnecessary. If I could turn this whole thing into another ground line, which I eventually will, then I will, because there's no reason for it to be hot and causing stuff for me to have to clean off. With the ground lines, you don't have to. So that's going to come down and go to there. We're going to go around now, so I'm going to stop you. That's where the other side of the fence. It comes down and ties in here to this line that goes and does that back section of fence, and then runs over and does this front section of fence. I'm going to disconnect this section and I'll just tie it off to the fence there for now. It has no real reason to be on, or actually what I'll probably do, because it does need, the way those come off like that, it's going to need some pull this way. So I'll probably disconnect it at this, so that then that clip is at least giving it some tension this way. So we're going to pull that, clear this line. I'm going to throw you guys up on the pivot so that I can work without a phone in my hands. And then we'll just move on once I get this stretch done. I saw there's a snapped wire there. This is that thinner wire. This is, I think, the 14-ish gauge or 16 gauge maybe, 16 probably. But it drops under. We used to have a water thing there, so that was why this hits ground so early. And now right there, and I just have a piece of OSB. You see where the ground line got dug up. This is where it was just really rainy all spring, so, and it wasn't buried very deep. Still buried right there. Comes up, ties into a gate with a rabbit door spring, like the cage door springs. Those seem to work pretty good, and a real long, thin spring will work. But I've yet to figure out a good gate clip. So this one is still working and functional to keep it off the gates, but you can see the middle one is gone, and then down there on the end is broken and up. So these just really, I've yet to figure out ones that work. This is the third style I've tried. The other style is the metal one, so I'll probably show you some down on the end there that seemed like the best solution. But they actually short out pretty frequently and then make the whole gate hot. And so you grab the gate and shock yourself, and that's not enjoyable. I'm gonna, for now, just disconnect this gate so I don't have to worry about it. It doesn't need to be hot. Oh, here's a broken one. That plastic just breaks in the sun. We'd had it up top for the dogs for a while, but now they know to not mess with the gates, so we haven't needed it in years. Oh, this is that other thing, which you did kind of see on the one. And you don't always need to put the electrical tape on this. I just do it. So I'll take 1/2 inch, the thick wall PVC. This is a thin wall one, so probably was just because this is what I had. But the thick wall works better, lasts longer. And I'll drill a hole in the wooden post, run it through. And you can get the thread through ones, but I have a hard time finding thread in 5-inch long extenders. This gives me that 5-inch. And I can actually drill the hole all the way through, cut a longer section of pipe that's the width of your post plus about 6 inches on either side, so an extra foot. So really it's like 18 inches roughly for most of ours. Threaded all the way through, put a screw through the top to hold it in on both sides, and do it if you're going to do a single too. But and then it's really sturdy, and it's got, then you have that for both sides of your fence. So both of my fences, all my fences that run between two, this is how they get that, and a lot of my other wooden ones get this too. And then we just drill a hole and thread it through, or you can, this one probably has a slice, that's probably what's got the electrical tape. If you are just doing a repair and you can't, you could just cut and thread it through and then have to reconnect, or you can slice, slip it in, and then electrical tape it into place. So yeah, let's get to work on repairing. Let's go ahead and just grab a few clips just in case. So not sure if we ran out of storage to declare a bunch of stuff again. Really bad about that. But so you probably saw me pulling off the grass off it and just putting it underneath and pulling the wire up. And that works as a good temporary to get this hot right now as fast as possible so I can then get off to work. But long term, that's what a lot of the big maintenance is just coming out here and weed eating it off the line. So I'll come back out, and when I do all that maintenance next week, I'll weed eat it down to as short as I can get it, right there on the fence line. So, all right. Okay, so this is a section that it never had any. We'd done the other side, but hadn't got around to doing this side yet. You're not very level. That's better. It never had any, so I'm gonna do it. It had a ground line, and this is what I'm talking about here. They've just chewed it up to pieces where it became exposed. This is a low spot where those gates all come together. So yeah, I'm just gonna run a hot line from the other fence across the front of the gate and over and through. It's not a permanent fixture. It's one of those temporary ones where I'm like, I want the front of that gate to be hot so they don't try to go under. And then when we come back and redo all the rest of the fence, we'll make it hot the correct way. Because otherwise, when I do that, I can't open the gate and I can't send pigs through, so I have to disconnect it all to make it work. So it's very much a temporary thing. Oh, there's two bluebirds sitting on the fence right there behind us. I really like the bluebirds around here. So I'm gonna hop to that. All right, so we should be live on this one. crossing my fingers. That's the gal who was over there. So, you know, fingers crossed. It's hard to tell her distinctive characteristics now that she immediately went to the wallow once she was in here. But yeah. So I wish she would come over here. You can definitely see, or I don't know if you guys can on the video, but how swollen her vulva is. She's definitely in heat, and that's why she went in there. We've got one coming over. The ground is very dry, so that never helps with conductivity. So for you new farmers that don't know, the way electric fence works, and the reason why you can do this, is electric fence is alternating current, not direct current. So, there we go. Scared me a little. So that's it. I just like to make sure it works. And I can put a tester on it, right, to test it. But standing somewhere near here and seeing if a pig walks over is a drastically easier way to do this. I'm gonna go ahead and flip it around here. Standing over here and just seeing if a pig comes up to it is a drastically easier way to make sure that it works, because the tester could tell me, yeah, it's got voltage, but it could be enough voltage that isn't going to ground out with dry ground enough to make it actually do any good. I think you're facing the sun, there you go. Actually do any good to stop the pigs. So that obviously stopped that pig. But you can see the way it popped. So like if you grab an outlet in your house, that's going to continue to shock you. And I don't think you can hear this. I can hear it shorting out on some grass over here. Yeah, I hope that comes through enough for you to hear, but what it does is it goes tick, 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 and that's alternating current. So it's juice comes out, juice stops, juice comes out, juice stops, juice comes out, juice stops. So that way, when you touch it, you get a shock, and then your muscles have a time to react. It's a microsecond there, but your muscles have time to react to go, and pull back off of it. With a direct current, that juice is continually flowing through you into the ground and then back to the source. With that alternating current, you get that microsecond stop, break, break. So you can pull off. And it reduces the voltage. So like I said, this is a 2 joule charger. It's meant for about 30 miles, but honestly, for pigs, it's kind of irrelevant. Our half joule charger, if any grass got on it, it was useless. So we're gonna put it on just the side yard, so it does a very small area. It's rated for 5 miles, but it's not really. It's like 5 perfect miles in a straight line with no weeds. So yeah, that's live. I don't have it live on Benedict yet. I'm gonna go up and see what his will take to make live, and I may make his live. If not, he's not tried to push through. He just stands at the gate and stares. But he's already got wire. I would just need to pull his wire up, I think, and throw a connector over here at this gate right here, because this is another blue line that they chewed up. It was the line that went from that to there. So I would just need to run I'd close this gate, run a hard line for now across, and check out this line and his one line up, his one line down there, and disconnect it from the rest of the loop. So we'll see if that's something I can set up real quick. It's not connected because it dead ends here on the current run. And so I can go work on his fence without getting shocked. And then all I would need to do is turn it off long enough to connect this to make his run hot. And we should probably do that because I really don't want to risk a boar getting out while I've got a farm sitter. So yeah, I'm gonna check that out real quick. Okay, so I'm down here at the very back end of the Benedict's paddock. All I had to do was disconnect this short section and pull up some clips to make his where it was gonna be good and functional. And you see I've pushed the grass down around it. That's not perfect, right? I will come back through and weed eat this when we get back, when I'm doing all my repairs. But this is that nice 9-gauge aluminum, and I'll probably wind up just replacing all of the rest of our electric fence to this over time as I'm repairing sections and doing paddocks, which is one of our next big projects after we get a few other things done. So I'm walking you up here because when we get to the top, see, I don't have a ground that runs underneath here to make this live. What makes this live, that just runs in dead ends at the gate. But that section that did have the ground at that gate that went down, it ties into the perimeter electric. This ties into the perimeter electric down there, runs in dead ends here. But that's when all of my fence is working, and right now it's not, right? So what I'll do is I'll take and I'll run another one of those just live connections from there across the gate to there. And they've been rubbing on this gate and messing with it for a while anyway, so it'll give them some good don't mess with the gate info, you know? So I'm just gonna tie off there with a live line there, and then do that little one at the other gate, and that'll make this stretch live. I will have to go turn it off. I'll do this one, and then turn it off, and then run that short little section down there, and that'll make me nice and live. So, yeah. So I think that'll wrap it up for this one. Remember, folks, if you made it through this far into the video, I know a lot of people don't. I think the average duration is like 4 or 5 minutes tops on our videos, and usually they're around 10 to 20 minutes. So for those of you that make it to the full thing, kudos. I appreciate you a ton. If you don't mind, hit that like button, that subscribe button, and comment. And you know, if you want to share, that'd be fantastic. And if you want to see more of the kind of stuff that we don't feel safe putting up on YouTube due to, you know, just the potential for it to get flagged by people that don't understand farming, hit us up on Patreon. Once we get a subscriber or two, we'll start steadily throwing up the YouTube videos also, or the yoga videos also. I just don't want to make an hour-long video and throw it up there and it sit there forever and no one watch it. So I need to see that it's actually going to do something first. So y'all have a great rest of your weekend. Bye.